when you're hunting a specific buck, trying to kill a specific buck, versus if you're just trying to be more of an opportunist and you're just hunting for a mature buck, but not so much a specific one. And we were having a conversation about this on the way up here about mine and Jacob's different hunting styles, where he's much more of an opportunist. Like he's just trying to find a really good spot where he's going to have a buck walk in front of him. And I kind of straddle in between it. And I think that's one of my problems I have from year to year is I'll locate bucks that I want to kill, that I really want to kill, but I don't usually drill down really hard trying to just kill those deer. I still hunt like an opportunist, but I want to kill the specific deer. And I think a lot of people can probably relate with that. So just as an opener for that conversation, what are your thoughts on that? Is it way different going after a specific buck versus just hunting mature deer at large?
Yes and no. Because both of what you're wanting to do, there's one way you can accomplish the same thing. What do you think that is? The absolute topographical features of the area that the deer have to cross through. So if I'm going to do both, if I've got like, Big Louie over here, that we're wanting to kill, but I know that his brother Joe is almost as good, and I would put an arrow through him. I'm going to find those spots in there, the highest percentage of where deer have to travel through. Have to. There's certain features, and I say topographical. It may be man-made. It may be, I don't know. There's just different things can take place in the woods. It may be like the hurricane last fall, man. It fried everything for us real quick, because it wasn't just blowdowns. It was impassable blowdowns in the woods. I mean, places you still can't get through or get into. So try to find those, whether it's a creek crossing, a bluff, saddle. You hear a lot saddles, but there'll be, the way they round the end of an ridge at some, and some things make zero sense to me. I go in and I look at something and I'm like, this is so much easier. Why are you doing this? And to this day, there's places like it I've looked at for 50 years, and I still can't tell you why. Well, guess what? I don't need to know why. I just know I can kill my deer right there. But there's certain things like that take place. So that's what I would do in those places. If it's an individual buck, be realistic with it. Be realistic. Don't be what you see on TV, what you see on YouTube. Well, I can do this. This will work. What I can do that. Whoever that is that's filming that stuff, they've never hunted that buck. You can take a certain percentages, certain odds, but you have to figure out what works for that animal. And a really good example, we all know, same guy just killed an absolute mega buck here a couple of years ago. And me and him had talked about this buck and strategies on it a lot. But there was one place that buck was being consistent at, one spot, and impossible to kill with a bow. Couldn't do it. I mean, where this spot was, you could forget about it. If you were down where this buck was at, he had you. And because a lot of these areas, let me say that these big deer are the most consistent at, have this wind. Mm. It's a cyclonic wind. It's a circle. Sooner or later, everything doubles. it may be doing this. But it's going to have that counterclockwise rotation to it there. But you could get up above it, the rifle, and be out of that rotation up here where you had a more consistent wind, get a shot. And, and that just complete brilliance to realize that, I want to kill him right here and I'm going to kill him with the butt. Well, it ain't going to happen. That's why he's here. And that's a thing to remember, that there's a reason these animals, especially your bigger, mature animals, are there. It's a reason they're there. They've got the advantage there. So you do have to find those edges in there. So if I was going after, let me think, some individual bucks. I'll give you an example here. The big drop time buck in there I was showing you there, that 12 I was telling you about. I found this buck where he was bedding on Thursday evening. Okay. He's bedding in just a narrow little strip ditch line. Finding rubs in there, here. I saw 3-4 rubs. I accidentally walked right in on his bed, which he's bedding just inside of the field edge where what the wind wasn't carrying to him. He could see anything coming down into this bottom and disappear out of. So second I saw that, I turned boots out, and I actually went and drove the vehicle up and down through there a couple of times because they were picking up hay. So, and I was scouting it while they were picking up hay rolls. So there were people in there, and they know the difference between a farmer and a hunter. They know the threat level's different. So I looked at that, and it's like, how can I kill them in there? I can't get in there to hunt. I can't go in from the backside. I don't have permission to come across that way. How can I kill them? I've got to get them in a weather front. So I set 200 yards off of that, set a stand at a point. And I thought, if I get a really bad wind system in here, that he can't bed and have his nose in there for the rest of it, he's probably going to bed whatever wind, where he can get the wind to his at, or visually. I knew this buck relied on his eyes a lot too. And so we happened to have a front that blew in that was just, it was awful. Rain, pouring, everything. And I thought, that rascal will be laying inside the ridge over in those big cedar thickets somewhere with this weather. They can look down, see everything above them. The wind's coming across the ridge from the back, dumping over down thermals. And it's a big ridge. But I was like, when this weather breaks, he's wanting to get back into that sanctuary where he is. How's he going to go? And I went and I said, had this stand already set. And I sat in there. The sun popped out. Started getting calls. Scott killed a buck. His first buck I was telling you about. Ethan shot at 8. Or Ethan shot his maybe before I did. But anyway, sit there. And right near dark, the wind died. It just, that front blew through, and you know how get close to sunset, how it does, and that's one of the, and the second I saw that wind changing, I stood up, bow in hand. I hadn't even pulled an arrow out of the quiver yet. I pulled an arrow out of the quiver, stood up, and started looking toward that cedar thicket. And within 10 minutes, I saw 2 big bucks walking right to me. And I shot him. He was like at 20, I don't remember, 23, 26 steps, which is a longer shot than I usually will take. But second I drew back, I knew he was dead. When I saw him, I knew he was. It just, you get that feeling like, yeah. But when I hit anchor, I said, Lord, just let me do my best. And that's exactly what I just whispered. And I said, just let me do my best. And if I'd missed him, I'd have been 100% with that because I'd already done it. And I be honest, I don't care that much about killing him. I like being able to hunt him. And if I could, I would let every one of them go just to hunt them again another day. And there's a lot of days a big buck will walk by me right now, and I will come to draw, or I will sit there at least with my bow out and put a little tension, because I told you, when I hit right here, sometimes I got this affliction. But, you know, and I'm just happy as can be because it worked, what I thought. But that day it worked, and I heart shot him. He ran, and I watched him tumble. And but that one, I was after that individual buck. And so what I did, I didn't know from where I saw he was at, I could look at it and say he's using his eyes and he's using his nose and he's using thermals. That's what he's taking advantage of. This buck is a thermal buck, and this buck is a visual buck. So what I looked at, where if he was not where he was the most comfortable, where he would be using that in another area the same way under different conditions. And that's how I identified where I thought, and it was a lucky guess. You know, it was a guess of odds, but I recognized when I found where this buck was, I saw what he likes. And again, thermals, he read thermals, and he was visual. So then when everything changed, I just looked and said, where would he be now? And then this is his primary area he's coming to. What's he going to need to do to get to here? And that's that spot. And I went to the spot in between. And, it was one of the, if you check off boxes, it's stuff that you got real lucky on, or you made the right decisions, that was one of them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that answers your question, but it just, and again, that's the thing with you guys that I maybe get across. You don't have to know everything about this deer. You don't have to on an individual buck. Recognize certain things he likes. Again, what type of trees does he like to rub? Does he like to, what time of day are you seeing them? Like there's a buck I hunted for, I probably saw a buck when he was maybe 4 years old, and I killed the buck. He was 3 or 4, and I'm trying to remember now. I don't want to tell you wrong, but I'm thinking 9 years later I killed him, or 6 years later I killed this buck. And where he was at, couldn't kill him. I hunted him. I saw the buck probably 50 times over years. And I tried everything I knew. And he would right at the crack of daylight get into this big bowl, this big thicket. I'd see him go into it, when I would see him. And it was just like, you'd be straining with your binoculars, but when you saw, he looked like he was just a pig, big old belly hanging. You knew it was him. Couldn't even see his horns. But I was like, man, I just need a little more daylight. I just need him moving daylight. And so I had to stop and think. I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. How am I going to I can't get close to him, but how am I going to get him to move a little later in the day? And so here's how him and Ethan and Dalton, first time I told them, it got them. I just changed the time of daylight. So what happens? I had 4 or 5 days, heavy overcast, nasty weather. Well, these animals, just like us, they have this built-in, what is it called, the diurnal clock. When daylight pops, like me, I wake up at the crack of daylight every morning. I mean, just barely. That's when I wake up. I just automatically know it's there. Well, 4 or 5 days, instead of getting light at 7, and at arbitrary time, 7:35, it was hitting daylight because of the cloud cover closer to 8 o'clock. Well, guess what happened in the middle of the night? That front blew out. Crystal clear blue sky. That buck's daylight, perception of daylight falling was falling at close to 8 o'clock. Well, 7:40 that morning, it got daylight. And he come by me. I was 100 yards, 200 yards off of where he went into these thickets somewhere along through there. And I'm sitting there, and because of it getting daylight earlier, he's still moving on that week-long schedule of dark. And I took advantage. It hit me when I thought about that. I thought, man, he might just get caught with his pants down out a little late this morning. That's exactly what happened to him. And I, even with that buck, I knew he walked this fence line, but even that morning, I thought to myself, if he gets caught that earlier, he's going to be down off in the bottom a little more in the darker woods further in than he normally travels. And I actually dumped down under the hill probably 50 yards lower than I normally would hunt, because I thought he would move to that side and be taking a little advantage of coming over top of the hill, thermal down through there. And that's what he did. The way he came around that spur, and I killed him. And I walked up on him, and I'm like, holy cow, But it was knowing that one or two little traits of that buck and characteristics he had that then I could take advantage of at that moment. And, and I did the same thing on a buck off the ground the very last day of rifle season. I shot him. I was standing up against a big tree as he was coming through a corner. Did the same thing to him a few years ago with this bow, and shot him coming in. And it was the only place I could kill him, but it's like, man, and I wouldn't have tried that, but it was the last day of season. I knew he was coming through this area, but if I'd tried it a month before, I would have completely thrown his pattern off, which somebody else would have killed him, or I'd have never gotten an opportunity at him. But I was like, it's the last day of season. What have I got to lose if I blow him out? Nobody else is stupid enough to be out here this cold, on this last day of season. And but it worked for him. But it's picking out for the individual buck, figure out the individual traits of him and where you can take advantage of those, what you've learned from him.